She was claimed to be unsinkable. She was the biggest ship in the world. 4 majestic funnels. 3 powerful propellers. And the most lavish interiors ever to be found on a passenger ocean liner of her age. But it would be an iceberg that would doom the ship known as the Ship of Dreams. She was lost on her maiden voyage, with the deaths of over 1,500 people. But the most infamous sea disaster wasn't just caused by an iceberg. It was caused by pure negligence and recklessness and bad facts to know about that time. And now, on the Mike Benitez YouTube channel, you'll find out how this accident happened and how it could have been prevented. Featuring never before seen photos of the Titanic during her construction stages, and the story of the company and origins who built Titanic. This is the legend of the RMS Titanic, Part 1. In this part, we'll see her origins as to how the famous ship was ever built. The 19th century. Steamships are now becoming a prime in their time. However, in ocean travel, especially in the North Atlantic, where our story takes place, things weren't so easy for that time. Ships will be in storms, and due to their small size, they'll be tossed around like toys in the open sea. Worse still, the conditions were unbearable on some ships, especially in third class. Even first class wasn't so good. And most importantly, ships would go missing. The worst thing to happen to a vessel and her passengers and crew. In some cases, there will be times where people would have to have go-away parties if they were never to return. However, some shipping companies took the advantage of the passengers and wanted to become the best shipping lines in the world. 2 of them were the German and British lines. White Star was first founded in 1845. However, right off the bat, they didn't have a very good start, as the ships they used were only chartered sailing ships, and one of them met a bad fate. RMS Taylor, one of those chartered ships by White Star Line, sank in 1854 after running aground. Out of the 650 aboard her, only 280 survived her sinking. She has been nicknamed the first ever Titanic. Sadly, the White Star Line fell into debt in 1867 and was forced into bankruptcy. The first White Star Line had come to an end, but a year later things would change. The only biggest company in the British shipping history at that time was the Cunard Line, founded by Samuel Cunard in 1839, and it already required their first ship. Rms Britannia. She was the fastest ship of her time, and like many others that would precede her and Cunard, she would become the most glamorous of ships of her time. White Star Line and Cunard Line would later become rivals, but let's wait for that until later. In 1868, a man by the name of Thomas Henry Ismay bought White Star Line's name and put it into his company, the Oceanic Steam Navigation Company, and for North Atlantic runs, they made a new class of ship. One day, Ismay is approached by Gustav Christian Schwabe and his nephew, Gustav Wilhelm Wolff, a famous shipbuilder. They agree with Ismay to build the new liners for the Oceanic Steam Navigation Company, which would later be renamed to White Star Line. Soon, the ships would be completed. There were 6 nearly identical ships known as the Oceanic class: RMS Oceanic, RMS Atlantic, RMS Baltic, RMS Republic, RMS Celtic, and RMS Adriatic. Already, White Star was having a couple of problems with this new class. First, Baltic and Adriatic, the 3rd and 6th ships of this class, were supposed to be named Arctic and Pacific. However, there were two tragic stories regarding these two ships. The Collins Line's Arctic sank after colliding with another ship, while her sister ship Pacific would disappear in 1856, never to be seen again. Worse yet, when Oceanic began her main voyage, with only 64 passengers aboard, her bearings overheated. She was forced to go back to repairs. She was literally a week late. However, her other sister started the main voyage without incident. However, one incident was far tragic than the rest. April 1st, 1873. Atlantic is making her 19th crossing to America. However, she was short on coal and had to go to Nova Scotia, Canada for resupply. However, sadly, on that day, April 1st, and this is no joke, she ran aground and sank. 535 people were lost in the Atlantic disaster. Literally, almost all women and children died, except for one 12-year-old little boy. All female passengers died on Atlantic, leaving a 12-year-old boy as the only survivor of women and children. This was the worst disaster until the sinking of the La Bourgogne, and was the worst sinking disaster at the White Star Line before Titanic. In the wake of Atlantic's disaster, the White Star will order two new ships, SS Britannic and SS Germanic. These two ships would become extremely popular at their time. Even Britannic won the blue ribbon in both directions. 12 years later, two more ships were built, SS Teutonic and RMS Majestic. White Star would sadly suffer another disaster, a more mysterious one. On February 11th, 1893, SS Naronic disappeared, with all 74 people aboard her. It is still unknown to this day what happened to Naronic. Georgic was built in place of Naronic. Then, after the construction of Cymric, White Star Line made a change. They would not go for speed, as Cunard did. They would then transform into size and luxury. In the late 1800s and to the early 1900s, the German New Deutsche Line made four ships: SS Kaiser Wilhelm der Grosse, Kron Prinz Wilhelm, Kaiser Wilhelm II, and the SS Kronprinzessin Sicily. These four ships would both win the blue ribbon, the award for the fastest ocean liner. White Star Line was going under extreme pressure. Teutonic was the only ship to win the blue ribbon. After this, no other White Star ships would win the blue ribbon. Competition became more intense when SS Deutschland from the Hamburg America line was built. This was also a German company. Then White Star Line's main rival would get new ships. Cunard announced that they would be building two new superliners to match the Kaiser class. Both were built in 1907, and I have talked about them many times before on my channel. The first of this supposed class was the infamous RMS Lusitania, followed by her sister, RMS Mauretania. White Star knew they had to make better ships, but sadly, their founder lost his life. At this time, a new steamer was being built, Oceanic, of 1899. She was the second ship to name Oceanic. On the 22nd of November, 1899, Thomas Henry Ismay died. His health deteriorated so rapidly that they had to cancel the second sister ship to Oceanic, Olympic. The last thing Thomas Henry Ismay did related to his company was to visit Oceanic. His son, J. Bruce Ismay, will later become the new president of White Star Line. However, he will become very, very controversial in the events of the Titanic disaster. So, after the death of Ismay, J. Bruce Ismay, his son, decided to build a new class of ship, the Big Four. They would be SS Celtic, SS Cedric, RMS Baltic, and RMS Adriatic, the fastest of the Big Four. Enters the picture of John Perriman Morgan. He decided to make a new company that would combine all other shipping companies. He wanted to monopolize the shipping trade. The International Mercantile Marine Company was found. with White Star being one of those shipping companies. However, due to the fact about Lusitania, Mauretania, Carmania, and Lacunia that were both built in Cunard during the 1890s, White Star Line needed to build better ships. However, White Star Line did complete something in the 1890s. When building of Oceanic II in 1898, she was bigger than the biggest ship at that time, the SS Great Eastern. However, the International Mercantile Marine Company was suffering because one company refused to even to be part of it, and that was Cunard.